Hi everyone, and welcome to my newest video, counting down my top 10 favorite steam locomotives. There's something about steam railroading that just invigorates people. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the sound of the lonesome whistle echoing in the distance, the smell of the smoke, the of the drivers. Something about it just welcomes you in. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you my top 10 favorite steam locomotives. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We start off with one of the classic American roads, the New York Central, and arguably their most famous locomotive ever, the streamlined Dreyfus Hudson. These locomotives were built by the American Locomotive Company in the 1930s, and 10 of the 50 Hudson types were given streamlined shrouding designed by Henry Dreyfus to match the set of Pullmans being used on the 20th Century Limited, one of the finest trains ever to grace the rails. Sadly, none of the Dreyfus Hudson survives upon the retirement of steam on the New York Central. Coming in at number 9, we have the C&O Allegheny. The C&O was a coal road, no bones about it, and they made their name hauling coal from the mines of West Virginia and Virginia to Chesapeake Bay for shipment around the world. To do that, they needed engines that could haul longer and heavier trains, and the H8 Alleghenies fit the bill perfectly. These behemoths were built by the Lima Locomotive Works for one job, hauling coal and lots of it. And they did that job well until the end of steam on the C&O, when they were replaced with diesels. Coming in at number 8 are some of the most unique locomotives on the list, the Southern Pacific cab forwards. These Baldwin-built articulators were constructed with their cab in front of the boiler, hence the nickname cab forward, as a way of protecting crews from smoke while working the Sierra Nevada mountains. Most of the trackage through the mountains was covered to prevent snowfall from stopping the railroad by blocking the tracks. Today only one survives. Number 4294 is at the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento. Continuing the theme of unique locomotives, we have the Shay Type locomotive coming in at number 7. Designed by Evram Shay as an alternative to rod-driven locomotives for logging railroads, the Shays stand out because they're driven by a drive shaft, thus allowing them to hold their own against grades of 9% or more on logging operations. Cassidy Railroad in West Virginia has the world's largest fleet of operating Shay locomotives. You can see Shay number 11 in action in a video I did on a trip to Cass last September. The link is in the description. The first appearance of the Norfolk and Western on this list brings us the mighty A-Class. Built by the railroad's own shops, these behemoths were not unlike the Alleghenies on the C&O, being assigned to lengthy and heavy coal drags on the N&W, and just like the H8s, they were more than up to the task. Only one survives today. Number 1218 is on display at the Virginia Museum of Transportation in Roanoke, Virginia. Coming in at number 5 is the Norfolk and Western 484 J-Class. While the A's handle freight work, the J-Class locomotives could be found pulling famous passenger trains such as the Powhatan, Pocahontas, and the Cavalier. The J's were also built by the N&W's own shops, and they were the pinnacle of steam passenger power, able to reach 100 miles per hour on flat track, yet grinded out in the mountains of West Virginia. Only one J survives today. Number 611 underwent restoration to operating condition in 2015 and is currently still in running order. Coming in at number 4 is the Chesapeake and Ohio 484 Greenbrier. These magnificent machines were assigned to passenger service on the C&O and pulled passenger trains until they were replaced with diesels. Today just one Greenbrier survives, number 614, and is currently on display at the C&O Historical Society in Clifton Forge, Virginia. Interestingly, 614 is painted in non-C&O colors, but rather the colors of a train that never ran. The Greenbrier Presidential Express, which was to be a service between Washington, D.C. and the Greenbrier Hotel in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. 614 was to be the star attraction of the train, continuing a career that involved pulling the Chassis Safety Express in the 1980s. Unfortunately, due to numerous issues, this train never saw the rails. Arguably the most famous locomotive on the list, Union Pacific's Big Boy comes in at number 3. One of the largest steam locomotives ever built, these brutes started their careers just as the U.S. was attacked at Pearl Harbor. Suddenly, railroads were needed more than ever and to haul more freight than ever before. Big Boy stepped up and cemented his place as a railroading legend. Fun fact, the Big Boys were originally set to be called the Wasatch class, named for the grade they were designed to conquer. But a shop worker at Alco, the American Locomotive Company, where they were built, wrote there was a Big Boy on the smoke box number 4000 and the nickname stuck. Number 4014 was restored by Union Pacific and operated in 2019. It's currently at the Union Pacific Steam Shop in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Coming in at number 2, we have the Nickel Plate Road 284 Berkshires. My love of NKP Berk stems from one, number 765, which pulled the nerve of a train for years and showcased the majesty of steam against the beautiful backdrop of West Virginia. In revenue service, the Nickel Plate Berkshires saw action pulling fast freights for which the road was known. They could handle passenger trains as well and were capable of running at speeds of 70 miles per hour. The Berkshires were examples of Lima superpower design, with an enlarged firebox that required a four-wheel trailing truck, allowing for a higher operating PSI and therefore a stronger boiler to capable of producing higher horsepower and to be able to do so at speed. Another 284 takes the top spot, and we find another Cino locomotive on the list, the 284 Kanawha. I mentioned the 765 in the New River train, and the fact is that I owe it to the 765 introducing me to the Kanawhas. In 1993, the 765 was made to resemble Kanawha number 2765 for that year's excursions, and that's how she is presented in a documentary called Steaming Up the New River Gorge that I watched so many times growing up. It's the main reason I love steam so much. As I grew older, I came to know the reason the 765 could pull off the look of a Kanawha is because the two engines are basically the same mechanically. They were both designed by the Advisory Mechanical Committee, which controlled locomotive design and purchase for roads owned by the Van Swearingen brothers. The C&O and Nickel Plate were joined by Erie, Wheeling, and Lake Erie, and the Pere Marquette under the Van Swearingen umbrella, and thus the C&O got essentially the same locomotive as the Nickel Plate, with some design changes such as the positioning of the stand and the steam dome, as well as the location of the headlight, which dropped from the middle of the smoke box to halfway between the coupler and the number plate. The bell was also situated between illuminated number boards at the top of the smoke box and is part of what's known as the tripartite design. The C&O also differed in what they called their Berks. While most other roads accepted the name of Berkshires, which comes from the Berkshire Mountains where the type was tested on the Boston and Albany Railroad, the C&O saw itself as a southern railroad and therefore could not use a northern name such as Berkshire. So they called their 284s Kanawhas after the Kanawha River in West Virginia. The same thing applies to the 484 Greenbrier. The 484 is called a northern in most other railroads, and the C&O called theirs Greenbriers. 12 Kanawhas were saved upon retirement from the C&O. Number 2716 is being restored to operating condition in Ravenna, Kentucky, by the fine folks of the Kentucky Steam Heritage Corporation. I personally have seen number 2756 in Newport News, Virginia, and I mentioned it in one of the blog posts that accompany this channel. The link to that will be in the description. Well, there we have it. My top 10 favorite steam locomotives. You know, I didn't go into the mechanics a lot of each locomotive because to me there's so much more to steam locomotives than just mechanics. They're linked to our past, they're what makes the romance of the rails so real, and they're just incredible machines. From little 440s to the big boys and Alleghenies and cab forwards, just they're incredible locomotives, they're incredible machines. So with that, thank you for watching first of all. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, if you would please, and share this with your friends. I hope to go out and film trains in the coming future. We'll see about that. You can go out and try to film them, but you may not ever get any. It depends on just your luck sometimes. That's rail fanning. But until next time, this is Lucas Berry for White Oak Rail Productions. Please be safe, everyone.